Hello, everyone. I'm Patricia Raskin, and today I'm interviewing Rabbi Michael Fell, who is the senior rabbi at Temple Emanu-El for the past 5 years. Welcome, Rabbi Fell.
A pleasure to be here.
We're celebrating the centennial, the 100-year celebration of our temple. Um, what are your thoughts about the origins of the temple in the early 1900s, from what you've read, from people you've talked to?
The move to the East Side was a real attempt by the Jewish community during the 1920s to really say we've made it here in America, we've made it on the East Side, and to really create that beautiful building at the top of the hill to demonstrate and reflect that we've made it. We're successful, we're affluent, we're part of greater society, and we um, don't all live in the same place. We've sort of made Aliyah to the East Side metaphorically, literally going up to the hill. And the synagogue really is the beacon on the top of the hill. There's something beautiful when you're coming up from Elm Grove on a certain summer day or winter day when the sun is just right, where you can see the dome is glowing. And it really is a beautiful symbol of the status of the Jewish community here in Providence.
Hmm. And speaking of that, how our predecessors came here, what aspects of Jewish tradition or values do you think we really need to preserve that we started when they came? Of course, they
Mhm.
were here long before that, but they really brought that here that you feel we really need to preserve for future generations, those aspects of Jewish tradition.
So when you look at the stained glass windows in the sanctuary, those really reflect the values, the ideas that were central to the founders of our congregation and their aspirations for us in the future. And certainly, as you look at the work that we've done in the synagogue, we are continuing their legacy. So, if you can imagine the stained glass windows telling the story of the significance of the holidays, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shabbat, Shavuot, and Pesach. If you imagine on the left side, those stained glass windows tell the stories of Jewish values like Torah and emet of truth, of gemilut chasadim, of pursuing peace. And also this recognition that we are simultaneously at home and comfortable here in America, but also have a strong tie to Jews all around the world, and in particular with the state of Israel. It is
Mm.
incredibly telling that even before the founding of the state of Israel, the stained glass windows that were installed towards the end of the 1930s have many pictures connecting our Providence Jewish community to the land and the people in the land of Israel.
Oh, yeah, and we have those today. And in celebrating this centennial milestone, we've made renovations recently to Temple Emanu-El. How are those renovations honoring this milestone?
So let me think for a second. Hmm. When they first built Temple Emanu-El in the mid 1920s, the engineers used cutting edge technology and told us the stones would last about 100 years. Well, here we are about 100 years later, and the stones started failing. And whereas a lot of the work that we did was replacing the facade of the building, the structural integrity of the shul, in many ways, what we're doing is what we did was make sure that our sanctuary, one of our most sacred places in the building, is safe, it's preserved, and it remains a dignified spot in our community. When we did renovations leading up to the centennial year, we wanted to make not only the structural repairs that were necessary to make sure the building didn't fall down, but we were also wanted to make sure that it was a place that we could enjoy, where rooms like the Sisterhood Lounge or some of the classroom spaces reflected their changing needs. They were not only aesthetically beautiful, but also helped us accomplish our mission of being a home for the Jewish people here in Rhode Island.
Mhm. And one of the things also that you've brought here in your tenure is the technological aspects, which has really been part of your role as a rabbi. And so, how do you use that? And of course, we went through COVID, so we really needed technology more than ever. But how do you navigate the balance between tradition and innovation in your clergy work?
So with regards to technology, the technology is a tool to get to the next. Sorry, start over. Technology is meant to be a tool that helps us further our mission and our vision. And so, for example, the question is, how do we bring Torah How do we bring education? How do we bring experiences and a sense of joyous Judaism out to the community? It used to be that you could count on people to come into the building, but the truth is, people sometimes, for whatever reason, aren't ready to come into the building or it's physically too far away. And so, through the use of technology, we're actually able to bring the synagogue out into the community. And so, when we think during the pandemic, that shift from in-person minyan to an online experience that really sustained us for almost 2.5 years. Um, when it became safe to gather once again, being in person is vital and different than being online. And so there was this push to return to daily in-person minyan. But at the same time, we also learned that some people just can't come into the building. So why not use technology to make the shul and Jewish life more accessible to them? When
Mm.
I first got here, we made many weekly videos interviewing B'nai Mitzvah students, hyping up Jewish holidays. And in some ways, Judaism is something that people need to be turned on to, that people need to get excited about it. And if Old Navy and Land's End are willing to send emails and videos and Facebook posts to make sure you know about them, then I think Judaism deserves the same kind of publicity.
Mhm. And I see that as part of the role of the rabbi evolving in response to these society shifts. What do you think?
Well, at the core, conservative Judaism is an attempt to conserve our traditional practices, the things that uh, give life meaning and purpose, that infuse our lives with a sense of holiness and sanctity. And at the same time, one of the values of conservative Judaism is to recognize what are the shifting understandings um, of what feels right, uh, and how can we reflect. Let me start that one over. Can you do that one over?
Sure.
Yeah. One of the things that historically, an aspect of conservative Judaism that has really drawn me towards the movement is the sense of trying to create a halacha, a Jewish law, that simultaneously upholds the values, traditions, and practices of the past, but also recognizes that in every generation and in every location, sometimes those values change and evolve to reflect new ideas, new
Mhm.
priorities. And so I
Mhm.
think one of the beauties of conservative Judaism is creating a halacha, a Jewish law, whereby our practices reflect our loftiest aspirations and understandings of what it means to be a holy people.
Mm. Can you share a memorable experience or a story as a rabbi that really encapsulates the spirit of our temple, Emanu-El?
Sure, can I add one more piece to that last answer? Can I add
Yes,
one more piece to the
sure.
when I think about the inclusion of women in ritual life or egalitarian Judaism or the inclusion of the LGBTQ community, and sort of merging our understanding of halakha, Jewish law, with these contemporary values, I can think of no greater service to our people than saying that living our lives according to a certain practice, a certain halakha, is the loftiest aspiration of what halakha can be. In
Mhm.
terms of who we are as a community, um, give me a moment.
Can you share a memorable experience or story as a rabbi that encapsulates the spirit of Temple Emanu-El?
Give me one second. There's a couple I want to choose which vignette I want to share. Um, yeah, one of the central, one of the stained glass windows in the sanctuary. I love the stained glass windows. Plus, it gives you great B-roll if you want it.
Mhm.
Um, one of the windows in the sanctuary describes the synagogue, or one of the stained glass windows in the sanctuary shows a picture of the shul, and it says Beit Knesset, a house of gathering, Beit Tefillah, a house of prayer, and a Beit Midrash, a house of study. And on Wednesday mornings, following Minyan, I've been teaching a class for the past year or so. It's a class where we go line by line in the Shulchan Aruch, a code of Jewish law from the 16th century. But more than that, it is an opportunity for us to learn together, to pray together, and to use prayer and study as an opportunity to build community. And following the birth of someone in the class had a child, and when we sent out a meal train, it filled up within an hour. And this relatively young couple had a baby. And all of a sudden, the entire community, people who really knew them well through Minyan and through the class, as well as people they didn't know so well, all contributed to taking care of them for the next month. And
Mm,
when you have family living far away, the shul can really be part of that larger family that helps build you up and hold you and support you during moments of joy, like the birth of a child, or after a difficult moment, like the loss of a loved one. And
mm,
so that seeing that meal train filled with the names of older members and younger members coming
yeah,
to support this new family makes me feel like we're doing something good in the world.
yeah. That's very special.
I'll add another one. About a year and a half ago, like 2 years, during Yom Ha'atzmaut one year, I think it was Yom Ha'atzmaut, uh, Cantor Mayer and I were invited to the Rhode Island State House for a session where they recognized the importance of the relationship between the state of Rhode Island and the state of Israel. And not only did we have an Israeli flag mounted um, behind the main chair in the house, but we also, Cantor Mayer sang Hatikva. And so it was this moment when Rhode Island Jewish leadership, and it was a privilege for Cantor Mayer and for me to be there, to really live out our values both as Rhode Islanders, but also as members of the Jewish community, and to give Temple Emanu-El leading the way in terms of recognizing the importance of the connection between Israel and the United States.
Um, you answered this in part of one of your other answers, but specifically, how do you foster inclusivity and diversity within our congregation, particularly in light of the changing demographics of the Jewish community?
Uh, um, One of the central tenets of my rabbinate is that I believe everyone has something to offer to the greater Jewish community. And so the way we encourage people to come in and help and share their talents is by creating a space where everyone feels welcome, everyone feels appreciated. And so one of the ways of doing that is in the graphics that we use when advertising programs, or the way we talk about programs, where it's not um, that so that it, one moment. I'll just be more casual. Like, it's about being mindful of who speaks and how often they speak, and is there a fair balance of men and women speaking? Are we raising issues that relate to everyone? And that's where we created certain affinity groups. So you have our Boomers and Beyond group. We have our TEQ group for LGBTQ awareness. We have a TEED for our members in their 20s and 30s and 40s. You have the Brotherhood. You have the Sisterhood. We had a Shabbat dedicated towards uh, reproductive rights, a Shabbat dedicated towards Jewish Disability Awareness and Inclusion Month. And so by uh, publicly speaking about all these little sub demographics, it reminds everyone that our community is incredibly diverse, and part of our strength comes from that diversity. And so at the forefront, again, is creating both formal and informal ways for everyone to see themselves in the synagogue, and then for them to bring themselves into the synagogue.
Mm. And Temple Emanu-El has grown considerably over the past few years, which is a milestone in itself considering the recent COVID pandemic. What do you attribute that to? And how do we keep the temple growing and thriving for the next 100 years?
Um, I would like to say in an era of, and I've said this many times, in an age when many synagogues are contracting and consolidating and closing, Temple Emanu-El has grown by about 10%, about 50 households. Now the
Wow.
math is wrong there. Hold on. We'll do that one over. In an age when many synagogues are closing or consolidating or contracting, Temple Emanu-El has grown over the past 5 years, just in sheer number of households that make up our community. I would like to think that it's because of visionary leadership and incredible staff and really talented lay leaders. Um, but the truth is, it's because, let me do it one more time. Sorry, because it's such a good line. I don't want to botch it. Sorry. Um, in an age when many synagogues are closing and consolidating and contracting, Temple Emanu-El has bucked all those trends and is currently growing and thriving. And I think it's due in part to our lay leaders, it's due in part to our fabulous staff, and it's due in part to our amazing congregants. The fact that congregants share their wisdom, their talents, they volunteer, they share their treasure, everyone buys into this belief, this understanding that when everyone contributes, we can create something magical at the synagogue. And so I'd like to think it's a combination of all of those things, hard work and talent and great ideas. But I'm going to be honest, there are many synagogues where they have all of those things. We're also incredibly lucky. You can't overestimate how much you need a little bit of luck to make it all work. And I am incredibly grateful for the lay leaders, my colleagues, my staff members, and having the chance to work with so many congregants to help build Temple Emanu-El.
Mhm. Looking ahead to the next 100 years, what are your hopes and aspirations for the future of Judaism and for Temple Emanu-El?
Retirement. No, um, I think when I look at the future of the synagogue, this present is an incredibly exciting time. But our tradition is one that simultaneously celebrates the past and honors it, makes us aware of all the gifts that are here in the present, but always mindful of what's happening in the future. As I look to, what would Emmanuel look like in 100 years? I hope that we continue to be a place that focuses on building sacred, holy community, a place where we have an eye towards those who are in need and those who need a helping hand, a place where Torah, Avodah, and Gemilut Chasadim are central to who we are. Torah, our rich tradition, with an understanding that it changes and evolves over time. Avodah, which we can translate as prayer, a deep connection with the divine, but also service to others. And finally, Gemilut Chasadim, a community that's known for being charitable and kind and involved in actually doing the hard work of creating a more just and whole world.
Mhm. I think that actually answers this next question,
Hmm.
but may want to add more. And that is, we have some pressing, challenging issues that are facing our Jewish community and our Jewish world today.
Mhm.
And so the question was, how do you address them in your role, and how can we address them as a community? Which I think you just answered.
Well, I think one of the things I believe Judaism has a lot to offer the world. And I think we can't be embarrassed or shy away from really believing that what we have to teach matters. And the way that we live our lives can be a model and can inspire others. And so when we ask, like, what's the purpose of Emmanuel? What's the purpose of Judaism? I would say it's about furthering a relationship amongst members of the community, but also bringing God and a sense of the divine and a sense of wonder at the center of our lives. And I think as long as we place Torah, our values, our ideals, at the center of who we are and what we do, that message is one that will always need to be heard.
Right. And you think that together as a community, even though we're going through a lot of challenges today,
Well,
with
I
Torah
think,
and with community, we can get
yeah,
through it.
I think one of the central idea, so like one of the strengths of our community is the diversity of who we are. I think as long as you model constructive, productive, respectful dialogue, you just keep furthering the conversation. I think that we are not the first generation that has ever had to deal with conflict or anti-Semitism or Jews who aren't affiliating in the same traditional ways that we do. And so all we have to do is keep reminding ourselves, what's the mission? What's the purpose of who we are as a people? And I keep going back to Torah, Avodah, and Gemilut Chasadim. As long as we make teaching and learning and praying and hoping for a better future and working hard to try to bring it to fruition, those are messages that will always resonate throughout the generations.
Beautifully said. Last question. What advice would you offer to aspiring rabbis or someone considering a career in Jewish leadership based on your own insights and experience?
So a few little tidbits people have said to me which resonated. The first is, if you can imagine yourself doing something else, do it, because this is a job that is it's hard and it's tiring and you really have to be in it. And so if your heart's not in it, people will know. So if you can imagine yourself doing something else, pursue that something else. That's number one. Number two, you
Oh,
can't
I'm
do.
going to hold for a minute, though. I'm going to hold for a minute. I bet, I could be wrong, that you didn't imagine yourself doing something else. This is what you imagined doing. Am I right?
100%. 100%.
Yeah. And it
Once I realized,
shows.
yeah, once I realized I wanted to be a rabbi, when I was in middle school, I wanted to be either a journalist or an accountant. And when I was in high school, my rabbi sent me to a retreat at HUC Hebrew Union College in Cincinnati, and after that, I was hooked. That I knew I wanted to serve the Jewish people as a career, and it feels like a great gift and privilege every day when I go to work. Um, I think like that was number one, do something else. Number two, you can't view your congregants as your congregants. You have to view them as your friends. Because if you view them only as your congregants, you're always working. But if you view them as people, as your friends, as your partners, then it just means that you get to hang out with your friends all the time. And that's been something very powerful of seeing it as a real gift, where my job is to get to be part of people's lives and be in community. And that's something that I really appreciate. And if I was giving advice um, to future rabbinical students, I would say, I don't know if this is too, you can decide if it's too crass, right? Which is our job is to serve the Jewish people. And so if you don't like teaching and you don't like giving, you don't like services and you don't like trying to work in the toil of every day of Jewish life, then this is not a job for you. But if you really want to serve and you want to help and make a difference, not only in people's lives, but in the world at large, this is a wonderful way to do it. And like I said, I feel grateful every day that I get to be the senior rabbi of Temple Emanu-El.
Oh, beautiful. That's all I can say. And inspiring and heartwarming and fun, which you
Cool.
always make things fun. Thank you so much, Rabbi Fell.
You
Rabbi
are
Fell, who is the senior rabbi at Temple Emanu-El for the past 5 years. Thank you.
you're very welcome. Can I add one more thing? Can I add one more thing? Keep it going, keep it going. Um, Finally, or like one final idea, if you were giving advice or whatnot, um, being part of a community that you actually want to be a part of. Living here in Providence is one of the greatest gifts that I've been able to give my family. It's one of the things that brings me the greatest joy. And to follow in the footsteps of other rabbis who have had the privilege of working with fabulous cantors, and then I get to work with a fabulous cantor, it just makes the job even more enjoyable. So, another reason why being the rabbi here is such a great gift.
Thank you.
All right, that's it.